Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Bloobcast Halloween episode.
Okay, thank you, Skeletor, for opening our Halloween special.
But first, why are we called Bloobcast?
Yes!
Yes!
Yes, indeedy do!
Tonight, we are discussing the great Gothic hero, the world's greatest detective, the enigmatic Dark Knight, Batman! Or specifically, Batman the Animated TV Show.
At the end of our last episode, we said we were doing X-Men, the X-Men movie series. We did record it, but it ended up being about 2 hours long. Mm-hmm. And it will be on its way to you, but it's going to have to be a two-parter. We want to do something in time for Halloween, and Batman is slightly more Halloween-esque than X-Men, so we're pushing this one forward.
Pray for me, viewers. I got a 2-hour video to edit.
Batman the Animated Show is like one of the coolest Gothic works of essentially children's entertainment that's ever been put together. Like, it is basically horror in a lot lot of ways.
Especially the ways like the villains are. Like they kind of got like these tragic backstories and the like, and they're all very kind of like sinister and Gothic.
Yeah.
In their own way.
I'm glad we kind of jumped into the Gothic element because I've been reading a lot of Gothic literature myself this year. I've read Dracula and Frankenstein. I'm reading Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde at the moment.
Jekyll, Hyde, Jekyll, Hyde, Jekyll.
Whoa.
Hyde, Jekyll, Hyde. Jekyll, Jekyll, Hyde, Jekyll, Hyde, Jekyll. Jekyll, Jekyll, Hyde, Jekyll, Hyde.
I recently watched the Clayface episode, and that kind of reminded me of like a Gothic monster. It just felt like something I can imagine being written by Bram Stoker or Mary Shelley or something like. Basically, science going wrong, creating a monster that's like transcending humanity in like in unimaginable ways, but it's set in a more contemporary setting, which is in a more like 70s, 80s setting of Gotham City, basically.
That's the interesting thing I found with the setting.
Is Batman in? Like, I always thought of it as 1930s. Like
1930s.
I think it's really interesting with this show. What I see it as is it's kind of like a mix. It's like kind of like it's got its own kind of feel. It's like a mix of like the 30s and at the time modern day. So it's kind of like. Isn't it kind of a timeless feel? So it kind of feels like the 30s and the 90s.
Yeah.
Everyone lives inside. It's a mix between a film noir film, the Bram Stoker's Dracula, and H.G. Wells's The Time Machine.
H.G. Wells definitely,
and the 1950s Superman cartoon.
Oh yeah, well that's like.
I think it is. It's like it's a timeless world. It's like it's almost like there's no kind of modern era that it takes place in. I mean, there's Zeppelins like flying around everywhere. As far as I'm concerned,
they're kind of like weird futuristic Zeppelins as well.
Yeah, they're like weird futuristic Zeppelins, like kind of hovering over like a 1970s or 60s city.
Zeppelins were around in the 30s.
But they weren't operated by policemen and stuff like that.
And the bad guys use like Tommy guns and stuff. That was part of the reason they were able to use guns in the show, because I think Fox, to the network who were showing it, were very much like, oh, you can't use it. Like, they're allowed Tommy guns because, like, no one uses Tommy guns anymore.
You could get away with the kind of old-fashioned look of everything. Yeah. That's the thing. Like, Harvey Bullock, the detective character, looks like a really fat version of Humphrey Bogart. Like, just he's got that exact same outfit of a big trench coat and a suit and a tie and a trilby hat. Like he looks exactly like that kind of image of the the fat donut eating detective who's on the case.
I could be wrong, but I think Bullock might be one of the several characters who originated in this show and carried over into the comics. Because Bullock is in Gotham as well.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's the really amazing thing about Batman the Animated Show, is how much of an influence it actually had on Batman, the comics, like outside, and film. Like, it really needs to be stressed that, like, Harley Quinn, who originated on the show, has since become a movie star and has her own TV show.
But not just that, but I think tonally as well, the show kind of really established the identity of Batman a little bit more.
I think this was off the back of the Tim Burton Batman film. And before that film came out, most people's public perception of Batman was the 60s show, which is fun, but to me, it's not really Batman.
It holds a special place in my heart, but it's not Batman.
Well, that's the amazing thing. You know, I mentioned to my parents I'm reviewing Batman, and the first thing they do is na 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 na. You know, it's like that's the image of Batman for them is that kind of old, kind of kooky, campy TV show. But here we are discussing our Batman, who's this kind of like, you know, dark, grim, mysterious figure, but not as dark and miserable as he's kind of been done later on. Like, well, not just Zack Snyder. I'm gonna lay off him a little bit.
Even Christopher Nolan does him.
Christopher Nolan took the character to really kind of like grim, dark levels, to the point that we say Nolanizing something. You know, when you want to make something miserable, you've got to Nolanize it.
There was even like moments in the cartoon that were like kind of like warm-hearted, you know, and there's kind of like uplifting. There's like the Christmas episode stuff like that. It's a horrible situation where the Joker kidnaps a family, but it ends with like Robin and Batman just like watching a bloody Christmas film.
Batman is not like sitting around moping over his dead parents all the time, which is what most people think of Batman. He's like cracking jokes. He's like bantering with Alfred. Sure, he's doing this because he wants to prevent what happened to his parents happening to anyone else. But he's not miserable about it all the time, which I think most people seem to think of Batman. He's like, oh, I'm Batman, my parents are dead, so I'm miserable all the time.
It's more like he's got like underlying mental issues rather than like them being out on the floor. Like every single moment he needs to remind everyone that his parents are dead. Like he's pretty okay for the most part. He seems to have dealt with it, apart from the fact that he's running around as a costumed superhero.
Can we go on to Mr. Freeze quickly? Because this show
go for it.
Massively changed Mr. Freeze. Because before this show, Mr. Freeze was just some dumb comic book villain from like the 50s or 60s who just had a gun and he went around freezing people for the shits and giggles, basically. This show,
read the 50s comics. That's basically their, like, every villain's MO is just they find whatever they're doing hilarious, and that's it.
Yeah, this show basically they gave him a tragic backstory. So basically his story is he was trying to work on the cure for his wife's terminal illness, and some head businessman shut down his thing because it's using too many company resources, and the end result is Victor Freeze now has to live in a suit to keep his body at 0 degrees.
Stop! Please! Beg you!
You beg? In my nightmares, I see my Nora behind the glass, begging to me with frozen eyes. How I've longed to see that look frozen on you.
And he's just such a tragic character. And that backstory transferred not only over to the comics, but Batman and Robin tried to do it, but did it very badly.
The Iceman cometh.
Please, show some mercy.
Mercy? I'm afraid that my condition has left me cold to your pleas of mercy.
They really, because they tried to mix kind of the old-fashioned idea of what Mr. Freeze was with this tragic backstory that the cartoon did, and of course it just didn't gel at all.
No. I think that was because they got Arnie, because originally it was going to be, I think they originally wanting Patrick Stewart, which in a better Batman movie could have worked. And then when they got Arnie, they started adding all these like stupid, I was like, what killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age!
Yeah, like, that's the kind of the old 50s conception of Batman, which it's just puns constantly, which the cartoon makes fun of a lot.
That is why the films have gone the opposite way, because everyone hated Batman and Robin, even though, to be honest, I think I'd rather watch Batman and Robin than Batman versus Superman.
Yeah.
Okay, so shall we get on to how we discovered the show? So
Rob, how did you discover the show?
Growing up, I was somewhat aware of it, because in my head, my idea of what Batman looked like while growing up was this animated version. I don't really have many memories of early memories of it growing up, but I definitely had Batman Pogs. Remember Batman? He's back in pod form. When I was 3, for my birthday, my godmother got me this vehicle from the show. It's called the Bats. I don't think it actually ever appeared in the show. It's like this kind of like this wing with a ball in the middle that rotated around it. There's a figure of Batman with it, which had a green flight suit, which was interesting.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely remember kind of watching bits and pieces, but I think the first time I actually watched it was when I was 10. When I was 10, I was visiting some family in Ireland, and there was a VHS which had 2 episodes on, which was the Castle and the Claw 2-parter. I watched it a couple of times, but it wasn't something that stuck with me, probably because those 2 episodes aren't the highlights of Batman. Then I think when I got into my teens, I kind of heard whispers of how this was like a legendary show, and I really wanted to check it out, but for some reason I didn't end up getting around to it until my last year of uni, when I got the DVD which had like the first 28 episodes. But again, I didn't watch the whole thing until I got the Blu-ray box set a couple of years ago. The Blu-ray box set, by the way, is a thing of beauty, and it's also kind of annoying that very few shows get that kind of treatment. Like a lot of animated shows over here, you've got to like import DVDs from America or something, because there's not really a market for animated shows on DVD over here.
Yeah, no, it's definitely still tricky. I guess now we have like streaming services, it's kind of better, but yeah, if you want your own physical copy, it's a lot more. It's like still pretty difficult.
I had to buy a Blu-ray player that played all DVD regions just to watch Reboot and Beast Wars.
God, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So James, how did you discover? Unless there's anything else, Rob, or you're...
No, that was my story. That was my story.
Okay, yeah, James, how did you discover Batman, the animated show?
Yeah, well, truth be told, it might be multiple choice in this situation, to quote the Joker. Basically, I think it might involve my grandma again one more time, because I did, when I was younger, I used to go to my grandma and granddad's house all the time, and I watched, when I was a little boy, I used to watch cartoons with them all the time, Scooby-Doo and all that, you know, and Batman was also on at the time. We used this thing called Freeview, I think it was called. Freeview? I don't know.
Yeah, Freeview, yeah.
I think it's changed recently. It's very different from what it was back when I was a kid. But basically, you can watch like little kids shows for a certain amount of time, basically in a day for free. And Batman was on there.
Cool.
But then again, also there was a lot of VHS tapes that my parents bought me as well. So they bought me a lot of Batman VHS tapes, and they also bought me the Batman and Superman movie on VHS. Which I think Rob actually told me that it was like actually comprised of 3 episodes from the...
Yeah, it was the World's Finest. It was a 3-part of the Superman TV show. They combined that together to make a full-length movie that they sold on DVD.
Yeah, and I had that on VHS, so I had that. And we also had a poster of that movie on our wall. I wish I had it now to this day, but unfortunately we lost it at some point down the line. But yeah, I also remember we had like Batman pajamas and like Batman like box merchandise and everything. Basically, there was a lot of Batman around when I was a kid, and it's a bit hard to pinpoint where I discovered it, but it's either through my parents or my grandma, I think, is the answer to that. And it was I enjoyed it a lot when I was a kid. How about you, Ewan? Tell us about your origins. Your origin story.
Yeah, my origin story. Well, you see, I got a vial of acid and things went horribly wrong when I experimented. And yeah, basically every villain, just don't go near a laboratory because something horrible is going to happen to you.
And it also helps if your name isn't something like Victor Von Doom, because you have no chance. You're just going to become a villain.
Yeah, don't be called Victor Freeze. Don't be called Harley Quinn. You know, whatever. Just don't be called like punny names. Okay, so I didn't watch much Batman when I was a kid. It was like I knew it was on because we had Cartoon Network on Sky TV. Again, I didn't have Sky TV, but my grandparents had Sky TV. And so when I was up in Scotland, I would sometimes watch, like, you know, there was a Sky TV Kids section, and that would have the Cartoon Network channel and stuff. So I knew that Batman existed, but I never got to watch it because it was always, I think it was a little too dark for me as a kid anyway, you know, because I was watching this stuff when I was probably about 7 or 8. So my only real discovery of the cartoon was, I want to say YouTube. I want to say that it was like YouTube clips because I'd always been a big fan of DC. I really liked the Superman films with Christopher Reeve. And then I kind of got onto Batman from that. And so I read like the Killing Joke comic book and, you know, a few other like Batman comics. And then it was like, I just don't know what it was. Someone mentioned somewhere down the line, oh, you should check out the cartoon. So I started just like catching clips of it on YouTube, and I was like, oh, this is really good. And then once I got to uni, I think I knew it well enough that James and I were able to have a conversation about it.
That's I've finished your story, but I also want to bring up another story when you finished. Go, carry on. Yeah.
Well, no, that's it. I think I watched kind of individual episodes over the last few years, but it's only been for this podcast that I actually sat down and watched every single episode, which doing that in 3 weeks is surprisingly difficult, but I managed. So anyway, James.
Well, it's well done to you for doing that. Actually, well done to you.
Yeah, because it took me months when I first watched it. But then again, when I watched it, I watched like the first season or 2. Then I watched like 2 seasons of Superman. Then I finished off Batman.
But. The story I was going to mention is when I was at university, I think it was like probably 2nd or 3rd year. Probably 3rd year, actually. This is when I probably started talking to you, and actually I met him properly. I think I was intoxicated in the library, writing an essay or whatever. And then I think no one else was there but Ewan. So I just bumped into you and I was like, you're right. I was like, oh, I see you in my lectures. How you doing? And I was like, yeah, all right, you know, blah, blah, blah. And somehow, at some point, we started talking about Batman Beyond, and I got a clip up on the computer, just like with Mr. Freeze, like in Batman Beyond.
I remember this so vividly. It's
weird.
It's so strange that memory has been like planted.
Yeah, so like I remember just coming up to you and being like, "Hey, you know, like Mr. Freeze's death was so tragic. Look at this scene, blah blah blah." And then also after that, Ewan showed me an Orson Welles thing apparently about how he voice acted in the Transformers movie, and how he like started lamenting about how he voice acted the fucking planet or something like that.
I think something like, "Oh, I'm a big toy that picks on a load of smaller toys" or something.
Yeah. Oh, it's a wonderful quote. Awesome.
So that's like the kind of first proper memory of friendship with me and you, and I think that's like the first time we kind of interacted.
That's crazy, isn't it? Yeah, I think it was talking about Batman Beyond, but there you go. But yeah, so I guess that's how we first discovered Batman, and yeah, wow. So,
shall we talk about the art style? I think we've already kind of touched upon it, but they drew it on black paper rather than a white paper. That's what I think helps give the show its like somewhat bleak atmosphere, and it's got I think they kind of gave it its own name, which was Art Deco.
Yes.
Yeah, it's kind of got like we said, it's a mix of kind of like 1930s and 40s with kind of like the modern times, and it's also it's kind of like everything just looks so unique to this show, and I love how square-jawed Batman looks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, again, it's that hard-boiled film noir look, you know, and it's this metropolis. It's like this metropolis world. Yeah, Art Deco is right. It's very modernist look to everything.
Yeah, Batman in the show looks so cool. I bought a figure of Batman specifically from this show, which I've displayed on one of my bookcases.
Oh, brilliant! Well, the intro I think is kind of incredible for capturing immediately how the style of the show and the atmosphere of the show, chasing down the two criminals and like a bank blows up, the two criminals run up onto the roof, and you just see Batman's silhouette at first. And the whole fight is that, and you've got the wonderful Danny Elfman theme. It's absolutely incredible, that opening sequence. It gets you into every episode.
It's like,
and the incredible thing about that opening sequence as well is it doesn't need to. It doesn't have a title on it. It doesn't need to. You just see Batman, and you're like, yes, this is a Batman show.
Yeah. But the thing is, what I liked about it is that they actually intensified the effort that was made by the animators, I think, in many ways. I mean, there's a bit where like Batman's like kind of putting a gaze upon the villains that he's about to apprehend, basically, that's stealing from the bank. And that frame of animation looks like an oil painting. It looks like it's all intensified with detail and stuff like that. And when you look at the animation, you mentioned he was a silhouette at one point. He moves so smoothly and stuff like that. It looks a bit better than actually like the animation in the actual episode, if that makes sense. It's like
sure, yeah.
It's quite common with a lot of shows, especially kind of like 80s shows that have like these really amazing opening sequences.
Yeah.
And then the animation would be like really kind of like stiff. I'm like thinking, I think even He-Man, like the opening animation of He-Man, is like really stiff and janky.
I think Batman did signal a real shift in American animation because before Batman, it was stuff like He-Man, where like the character models were just so kind of like stiff and like. I'm not going to rag too much on He-Man, but like, it was just.
It's a different era. I think in the 80s, most cartoons were just made because they wanted to sell toys. Whereas I think in the 90s they kind of started to shift away from that.
Yeah, and you can really see the kind of like the artistic love for the show. Like they so clearly put so much effort, not into just style, but the character designs as well. You mentioned like Batman's appearance is just wonderful.
So I think I'm not 100% sure on like the correct turn of events. Might be a bit fuzzy, but I think the animators who did it, they're working on like some like Animaniacs, or I think Animaniacs came after Batman, so it must have been Tiny Toons. They'd just done Tiny Toons, and then they're like, let's do a Batman show. And I think they kind of like did like promo, like kind of like test animation for it, and then I think they eventually got the job.
Wasn't it?
You can watch the show and you can tell how much they love Batman. Thing.
Totally. I mean, there's the wonderful episode Tales of the Dark Knight, which riffs off of both the old Bill Finger kind of like cartoon style of the 50s, and then they riffed on Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns, and you can tell like the creators of Batman the animated show like have consumed like way more Batman stuff than any of us have. They love Batman, and you can really tell that with every episode.
So this is a good segue onto the storytelling, because this is one of those shows that
Wait, before we move on to the storytelling, is there if I mention one more thing about the art style, because I want to talk about Bruce Timm, the artist. So basically, he's actually really cool, because he actually, as I said earlier, he made the image of Batman as we know him today. He's not qualified as an artist. He's not. He didn't go to art school or anything like that. He does think about going to it and all that. But at the end of the day, he's actually a self-taught artist, and he's the guy that like made these amazing stills of animation and stuff like that, and no qualifications whatsoever. It's amazing. Like, I think he's really a big inspiration to like animate. Like, for me as an animator, anyway. I just want to point that out.
Oh yeah, definitely him and Paul Dini. Like, because I think it was Paul Dini who first came up with the concept for Harley Quinn.
Yeah.
But then I remember Bruce Timm like just said, yeah, his like original concept wasn't great, so I improved it. And then the Harley Quinn that we know today was
that's the thing about Harley Quinn, is that she's just like kind of like, she's in the first episode she's just the background character.
Yeah.
And then I think she was just intended to be like kind of like some Joker's henchwoman, and then suddenly the voice actress did such a phenomenal job that she became so much more than that.
Well, Arlene Sorkin actually inspired Harley because she was on a TV show called Days of Our Lives, where she played she played like a ditzy character throughout, but there was one point where she was dressed up as a clown. She'd sent some videos over to Paul Dini because they were friends anyway, and to watch Days of Our Lives. And at one point, he watched this episode where she was dressed up as a clown, and he was like, that could be really fun for a Joker, like, henchwoman. Yeah, like to have a kind of clown girl sidekick. They got Arlene in because they figured, well, like she originated the character. They brought her in, and it was just supposed to be like a one-off character, and she'd just be there for the one episode. But then, like, she did such a great job. They were like, oh my god, we need to keep like writing for this character. So that was Harley Quinn. So thank you, Arlene Sorkin. You were awesome for originating a wonderful character.
Yeah, going on to the story.
Yeah,
for me, I think this is one of those shows that I think it really started to push the envelope for what children's shows were able to do in terms of stories. Like, the storytelling, it's mature and sophisticated, but not in a way that children aren't able to watch it. And it's also, what I like is, even if Batman wins, like, most of the time, the episodes are really bittersweet because of like the villains themselves. They're so tragic that you kind of like feels like a hollow victory because of like what's led the villains to go down the path they're on.
It's like from the very first episode, the pilot episode with the man bat. Like, even when he's killed and stuff like, he's carrying him with the scientist. It's like, is he okay now? He says, yeah, it's fine. It's over. For now. It's just like the last ending statement. It's like, it's not over, is it though? There's something is going to come back.
Yeah. I think the man bat was fine, wasn't he? Like another person gets turned into a man bat, but that actual guy was fine.
Yeah, I mean, from a story point, like from a chronological.
No, I know what you mean. Yeah, it's never like a happy ending. There's always
from a closing statement that like you're left to think, oh, what's going to happen next? Do you know what I mean? Kind of like a gothic ending.
The big ones, I think, with like the kind of tragic backstory is definitely Mr. Freeze, but also I want to say both Two-Face and...
I was going to get on to Two-Face because...
Two-Face and Clayface as well.
Yeah, Two-Face is probably my favourite villain in the show. Just putting that out there.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. His two-parter kind of show. I think one stroke of genius was they introduced Harvey Dent before he became Two-Face. He's kind of like... you get somewhat of an idea of who this character is. Like... And you see, they made him a friend of Bruce Wayne as well, so kind of Bruce has a personal investment in that. And then, like we see at the start of the Two-Face episodes, Harvey's got everything going for him. Like, he's doing a good job, like sorting out crime in the city. He's got a fiance who's really happy with, even though he was engaged to Poison Ivy a couple of episodes beforehand.
That's fine. That was like he was getting like. The mind control, well, not mind control, but he was getting like, as Poison Ivy has her ways of ensnaring men, basically.
But then suddenly it all starts going like downhill to like the extent that like he's now got like half his face burnt off, and now he's just like he's not in control, like because like if kind of established that he bottled up his anger as a kid after he accidentally he beat someone up for bullying him or something, and. He felt so bad, and then suddenly the anger just manifested itself, and now it's just not going away.
Yeah. And that's why the coin comes into it, is because he needs to flip a coin between like doing a good or bad thing, because he's no longer capable of making choices for himself, basically.
Just made you think of a scene in Batman Forever where Two-Face, who is a character who's not adapted as well as it is in this show. At one point, he just keeps flipping the coin until he gets the bad choice. He's just
that's cheating. That sucks. Yeah, I don't like that. Like one great thing about the Batman animated show is that it really rescued a lot of these characters. Like even Condiments King gets a better shout out than some of the movies have dished out for characters. Like.
That's the thing. Like, where at the time the show was on, the show kind of continued, kind of at the same kind of dark tone, whereas the movies at the time got more and more camp, which was I think an overreaction to Batman Returns, because I think that movie was a bit I like that movie, although it kind of feels like more like a Tim Burton movie that Batman just happens to be in. But it rubs parents the wrong way. Like they had to withdraw. McDonald's had to withdraw the Happy Meal toys because parents were like, "Oh, this is not appropriate for my kids, and you're selling Happy Meal toys to my children."
And Michelle Pfeiffer is hanging around in a leather outfit with a whip. Yeah, I can see why parents might have had an issue.
And Danny DeVito bites someone's nose.
That seems brilliant. I'm editing that in, sorry. Yeah.
The only thing is, Danny DeVito's Penguin is one of the few... I would say he's stronger than the Penguin in the animated series. Like, I kind of wish that
Penguin's first episode in this show as well is... not every episode is great. Like, Penguin's first episode is the one where I think Batman gets knocked out and he ends up in some kid's basement.
Batman in my basement. Yeah, that's such a, like... It's fine. It's a kid-friendly episode, but it's like... Okay, well, let's get on to the next story now.
Yes, because in the early days, even though it did do so much, they still had to deal with Fox because they were on Fox.
Sure.
And they had a load of censorship requirements of them. And but I think the show, for the most part, was able to find ways around that. And sometimes what they did just made it more effective. Like, I think one of the big examples is they show a flashback, which is the death of Robin's parents. Like, we see them grab the rope in one shot. Then the next shot, we see that the rope has been just completely snapped. Yeah. And that is just tells us all we need to know about what happened. It's more effective than seeing them fall down going, no!
This is the thing, is that because of the limitations, they came up with some really wonderful, creative, and kind of like almost iconic moments now, ways of getting around content that you just would not have been able to get away with going to children.
It was visual storytelling. It was like visual storytelling insinuation, basically. As you say, like Rob, with the death of Robin's parents, basically, they seen the rope kind of cut off at the end like that. You know exactly that his parents have died, basically. No words are spoken in that one moment. The music also plays a role. Like, I think it leaves a hammering note. It's like visual storytelling and audible storytelling without any verbal cues or anything. It's amazing. Oh.
Before we get on to the music, I want to say, well, they had censorship. The new Batman Adventure is kind of the sequel series. It's kind of like the third or fourth season of Batman. But they were on a different network. They were on, I think, the Kids WB, and they got pretty much no limits of censorship. So we got some pretty dark. We got the one which is all about the Joker and Harley's relationship, which even kind of shows how abusive their relationship is.
It's messed up, man.
Well, Mad Love was an adaptation of a comic book, wasn't it?
No, I think the episode came first, then they adapted it into a comic.
I want to say I used to think that, but then I think it was actually it was the other way around. Like Harley Quinn.
Google. You and you're half right. It was originally a comic book, but it was written as a comic book for the animated series.
Oh, okay, right. But yeah, but it definitely came later. I noticed it came out like a year after the new Batman. So it was definitely like its own thing, Mad Love. Anyway, I think they were able to get away with the kind of the darker content because it was like a comic book on top of the show, because it definitely felt different to the normal show, which I thought was interesting. Like it didn't feel like kind of the rest of the show tonally. That was just my thinking.
And then Batman Beyond kind of took that a bit further, I think, because Batman Beyond, I'm watching that at the moment, and like that is quite a lot different. It's a lot darker than like the original animated series, which is interesting because that apparently that show started out as kind of they wanted to make a more kid orientated Batman show, and they went in the complete opposite direction.
Oh sure.
There's a lot. There's a lot we've discussed in. I think we should unpack. So first and foremost, I think we should establish that Batman is actually the start. It kickstarts the shared universe that's in the DC animated series, basically. So basically, the Batman universe. Batman animated series kickstarts the DC universe that leads on to Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, the new Batman Adventures, and also Static Shock, I think
and Superman, the animated series.
I think, and Superman.
Yeah, and also Batman Beyond as well.
And there's also a spin-off of Batman Beyond called the Zeta Project.
Yeah, and there was also is it Lobo? Yeah, Lobo. There was also a Flash animated Lobo series that's connected somehow. Basically, this is all one shared universe that all starts from the series that we're talking about right now.
Yeah,
this is pre-MCU as well.
Yeah,
Warner Brothers, despite the situation they are in now, they were very good at making shared universes at this time.
I mean, Marvel kind of did it as well at the time. So they had the X-Men and Spider-Man shows, and they also had kind of like, I think they kind of had the continuity together. I remember there's a Spider-Man episode which had like Spider-Man teaming up with like the X-Men and some of the Fantastic Four and stuff like that.
I did find it funny. You were saying about, with the new Batman, they could kind of escape from some of the censorship stuff. I did find it funny how we suddenly got a lot more midriffs amongst the female characters. Just wanted to point that out.
Although some of the character designs in the new animated, I prefer the originals because I like
I prefer
Joker's animated. Joker's redesign just looks a bit silly. Like he's kind of got like the Mickey Mouse eyes.
Yeah, he doesn't have red lips, which is really strange. I don't understand why they removed the red lips. Yeah, some of the redesigns were okay. They definitely
a bit Looney Tunes-esque.
Yeah, and I felt like with the woman characters, it was very hard to tell some of them apart sometimes.
Oh yeah, they kind of gave them all kind of like generic kind of cartoony figures, whereas you could clearly tell like they were like women in their like mid-20s, early 30s in the animated series.
Yeah, you could. There was definitely more detailing going on in the original show, and the only criticism I had of the original show was the fact that every single male character was built like a bodybuilder. Didn't matter if they were Joker or Commissioner Gordon or Batman; they all had like these huge shoulders.
That has reminded me of something. I'm not sure if you know of the it's kind of a tangent, but the Star Wars figures that Kenner released in like the 90s. Like these are like the first Star Wars toys released since they stopped doing the figures in the 80s, and then suddenly these figures come out and they're all really buff. Like Snoop Skull's like ripped. He's got you can his shirt's kind of like come apart a bit, so you can see like his massive pecs. Like we'll have to put a picture in. I'll find the picture and we can put it in the video.
Yeah, please do. I was going to just draw it back a little bit with the storytelling in regards to the gothic element. So I can't help but feel that this reminds me a little bit of gothic stories that you get in the 1800s, or even gothic stories you get in the Twilight Zone. Freak of the Week, what the thing is, there's an element of tragedy in every villain's arc in the Batman cartoon show. So there's an element of tragedy for Clayface, there's an element of tragedy for Mr. Freeze, there's even an element of tragedy for the Joker. And it's basically it kind of reminds me of monsters like Frankenstein. They all feel like Frankensteins. Their scientific experiments gone wrong. They're tragedies that before they were good people, the monster has kind of been awoken within him because of some horrible experiment that's gone horribly wrong. Yeah. And basically, they become a tragedy, as a result of that.
It's Frankenstein and Jekyll and Hyde is the other big influence. You can really see that with Two-Face
and H.G. Wells' Invisible Man as well. I'd argue as well.
Oh, the Invisible Man does feature. He has.
The guy who he steals a stealth suit to see his daughter.
Yeah, it's funny. The recent Invisible Man movie is very similar to this Batman cartoon from the 1990s.
And again, that episode is tragic because it's this guy, he's trying to see his daughter, but obviously because he's a thief.
Well, he's pretty horrible. He seems pretty horrible.
He's pretty horrible, but at the same time, it's like
But that's another really cool thing is that the biggest cause of kidnapping is usually divorced dads kidnapping their kids. So it's actually a really it's like an actual social social critique story.
Okay, so
really
shall we go on to some of our favourite episodes?
I think James wanted to talk about Clayface at one point.
You're right. Yeah, so we can. So I was actually watching that earlier. Again, he's very much like a Frankenstein character. That episode, I watched the two-parter earlier. Everything about that episode is really well done. From
the animation for Clayface is really good.
It's frighteningly good. Literally when he's doing the transformations and all that, it feels like Studio Ghibli animation. It feels like.
Yeah.
Turn them off. You can play those roles again, Hagen. Let me help you find a cure.
No! Hagen's gone! Make him stop haunting me! Stop it! Turn them off! I can't control it! I can't be all of them! Not all at once!
We should mention that Clayface is a man who's literally like a clay monster. This is the thing. All of our praise for this wonderful character is like this weird blob of man.
But that's the thing. That's
really tragic origin because he was an actor at his face scarred, and so he's given this cream that kind of is able to allow him to mould his face into what he wants it to look like. And I think he has to deal with the mob. They supply him with the stuff, he does jobs for them, and then he suddenly ends up applying way too much, and it kind of absorbs into his skin and becomes just a big monster of clay.
They forced the clay on him.
Yes, that's the thing. Yeah, that scene is horrific. Can I just say,
they basically suffocate a man.
He's literally just screaming, "No, please don't, no!"
Yeah,
and it's and you see the shadows.
Yeah,
you see the shadow of it happening, just it's just so horrible. It's so grim.
It's another moment we've come across in doing this podcast where this is a kids show.
Yeah. Oh, one thing I really loved, I mentioned the kind of social critique side of it. I love the fact that so many of the kind of the real villains, because we love all the cartoony villains like Mr. Freeze and Clayface, but the real villains are all of these corporate businessmen who are basically mobsters. You mentioned, I think it's Roland. Is it Roland Daggett? Yeah. He was the mob guy who runs this pharmaceutical company that turns Clayface into Clayface.
And there's also the guy who he wouldn't let Mr. Freeze work on his project to cure his wife because it's taking up company resources and money. So
exactly, yeah. And Rupert Thorne is the main mobster guy, and it's and they all run Gotham. These are all the real company leaders, and they're all horrible. And I just thought to myself, yeah, that's real life. That's normal.
Yeah,
these mobsters.
He doesn't really sugarcoat it. There's even there's even an episode which is kind of it goes into drug use, and one of the mobsters is is someone taking drugs, and he's like, I'm going to get the guy who got him hooked, and his wife's like, it was you. Your drugs got him hooked.
Yeah, no, exactly. There was some real social criticism going on in the
There's a brilliant moment in the Mr. Freeze episode with is it Rupert Thorne? Rupert Thorne, you said, yeah. So where he gets frozen and stuff like that by Mr. Freeze, and then Batman saves the day, but also at the end he kind of provides the evidence of his bad transgressions. And basically it ends with him just walking away as he's half frozen. He's shivering, ooh. And then Batman just goes good night, humanitarian.
That's another good point. I love how in this show Batman gets to be a detective A lot of like the films that come out, like it's basically he just goes around beating up bad guys. No, he's a detective. Like, there's a reason why he's called the world's greatest detective. He's actually like looking into all these things and kind of like compiling all evidence and like looking into like how to defeat them.
Every crime scene he turns up to, he's always like picking up some tiny fragment or something that he notices that the cops don't notice, and it's very Sherlock Holmes, which is really cool.
Oh yeah, like the first episode, he's like picking up a tape that the police missed or whatever. Which
I love that. I love that. We have the security guard is like recording this radio show that he's wanting to do, and then he gets attacked by Man-Bat. And then, and that's the vital evidence is that this guy was recording it the whole time, and you get the sound.
That's the thing. Like, this show isn't like dark and gritty all the time. It is the subject matter is dark, but there's always like an element of humour to it. Like even when like the Joker, like there is like
the Joker's always funny. Like he's great.
Yeah. On that note, let's go on to the voice acting.
No, quickly. Sorry, I just wanted to talk about with Clayface.
Yes.
One quick final thing with Clayface, but also all the villains. I just wanted to mention because we wanted to talk about the music as well. With Clayface, I really noticed his like musical motif.
Yes,
that they
I
gave him.
really was going to mention that. I'm glad you mentioned that. Carry on, please. It's amazing,
because it's like da-na-na, da-na-na. And I thought that was like. I think that's why we relate so much to him is like the musical theme they gave him, and Two-Face as well. Like every time they introduce Two-Face, he's got like this amazing kind of flute sound that they play. And then of course like the Joker's more fun. They give it like this little kind of and it feels like we're in a clown show.
Yeah, and Batman has the triumphant
but that's the thing is that all of these characters they have like these little motifs, these little melodies that follow them around.
But Clayface had a really special one, as you say, and it really was an emotionally kind of. It was a very emotional theme, and it really pulls at the heartstrings. I thought I actually felt really bad for it. It's the moment when the TV screen showed that his parts in his films and all that. He's like. He realises who he was in the past, and Batman's like, "Let me find you a cure. You can still play those parts, And
I always felt like Batman went a little over the line in that scene. I always thought that he was basically triggering this poor man. Like he puts all of these photos of him, of like his old face, and like going, "Look at what you used to be," and he's like, "Oh God."
To be fair, he was suffocating him like seconds before that. To be fair.
Oh yeah, I know, but I do. I guess the one thing I will give Robin is that I do sometimes agree with him that Batman's methods do go a bit too far.
Yeah. Also,
he does torture.
Do you want to talk about Robin?
I don't really want to talk about Robin. There's nothing to say about Robin is lame. He ruins every episode he's in, and then he becomes Nightwing so that he can be mopey and annoying.
I like the birds, Robin, like the species of Robin. They're great. They're good gardening companions.
They're lovely. Real life Robins are lovely and sweet.
Gardeners' best friends.
I don't know. I feel like Robin just he's I don't know. I guess they included him because he was in like the old comic books and the old cartoons, but he's just so unnecessary a lot of the time because the episodes where Batman's just chatting to Alfred are just like they're fine. You don't need a third wheel here, and Robin always felt like a third wheel.
It's also
Batgirl, on the other hand, is actually cool.
I love Batgirl.
Well,
Batgirl.
Yeah.
It's cool because she turns up and she actually feels like a real teenager, which I really like. Is that whereas like Robin comes across as like this irritating like man-child.
He's kind of like a university student.
And he just I don't know. He doesn't ring true to me. Whereas like Barbara Gordon as Batgirl, like she sneaks in and she starts doing her own kind of like detective work, and it's really fun. And like I was like, I can relate to this. I can imagine myself like just sneaking around and going, you know, like as someone with no resources beyond like her own wit kind of thing.
Worth noting.
She like gets into the Batgirl world. Anyway,
One thing, before we move on to anything else, I do have to say, so I feel like we can't move on until we mention this, but you know the little kind of runner that like helps Clayface? He is so badly abused by Clayface, it's ridiculous. And right through the end, he's like really crying over him and everything. He's like, he's looking after him. He's saying like, you can still play these parts and like, he's just like throwing him around and shit like that. It's just, like...
he's a bit of a precursor to Harley. Like you can kind of see the same dynamic going on.
Yeah, and like literally, the Clayface shows him no love. It's really sad.
Okay, and there's another character who's kind of like that in that. Kind of the character had kind of like the glory days would take only for them to be taken away, which is Baby Doll. I think that's her name.
Oh God.
Uh-oh.
Baby Doll creeps me out.
Yeah.
Is that the one that like can't grow up or whatever?
Yeah,
it's like a
oh, that is horrible.
Child.
That is so horrible. That ending literally depresses the hell out of me.
When he just starts crying. Yeah,
because
really miserable.
basically the plot of that episode is she was a child star. And but then I think her show got cancelled. But she stays kind of like in the body of a toddler.
Like a toddler, yeah.
And then the episode she's in, she's going around kidnapping all the stars from her old show, trying to recreate the show, and it's so heartbreaking.
Yeah, there's a lot of episodes with kind of messed up actors, which I quite liked.
It's the bit where she's looking at the mirror, seeing herself as like a fully formed adult, and she's
that's
just
the
crying.
Ending. Which isn't like the Hall of Mirrors. She's just shooting all the mirrors, and then she just starts crying, and then Batman takes her in.
I've really got to ask, how does circuses still exist in a world with the Joker on it? Like, if there was one thing I would not want to be anywhere near in Gotham is anything clown related. I just want to stay away from it. Like fun fairs, circuses, that whole business would be dead in Gotham.
It reminds me of
the Joker comes along.
Even in Batman Forever, there's like a circus, and then Two-Face kidnaps a ringleader and takes his place, and then rigs the place to blow the bomb.
At least in that world, like the Joker had been killed off, so it's like, like, there aren't any more evil clowns. But like the Joker's always running around, and he's always doing clown-themed stuff. It's like they have a birthday clown turn up to a little kid's birthday party. I think it's like the mayor's son. And
then the Joker
exactly. It turns out it's the Joker and he kidnaps him. And I'm like, don't let clowns exist anymore. Like, the Joker has
scary anyway.
He's ruined clowns for everyone. Like,
to be fair, what's the whole appeal of, like, clowns? I don't understand. Like, they look like... I love clowns. I love clowns. I think everything about clowns. For comedic or like horror purposes.
Both. I love slapstick and I love horror clowns. Like I think they both have their place.
I just remember because a couple of years ago there was a trend. I don't know how. I think it was a promo for that It film. People dressing up as clowns and chasing people. Yeah. Shall we go on to voice acting?
Yeah, let's go on then.
We're doing voice acting. I thought we were going to.
Okay. Two prominent roles who have been so influential as these characters. They've gone on to voice like the Arkham games and even other like the DC animated movies. We've got Kevin Conroy as Batman doing like the perfect. He's kind of perfectly balances the Bruce Wayne and the Batman because they're kind of like two or three separate entities, depending on how you look at it. Because there's the billionaire playboy side, which is the side he shows to the world. It's kind of like the Batman side.
Yeah.
And then there's the real, like, Bruce Wayne, who's the side that only, like, Alfred knows or who Robin knows.
Yeah.
And then we've got Mark Hamill, a.k.a. Luke Skywalker, who's voicing the Joker.
Yeah. May the floss be with you, is a line he says in the Batman animated show, which just made me chuckle. It implies that Star Wars exists in the Batman universe.
Yeah, but I think what's mad is it was nearly Tim Curry as the Joker. But I can't remember the exact reason why they went with Mark Hamill instead, but I'm glad they went with Mark Hamill because as much as Tim Curry would have been great, Mark's just got that perfect Joker voice.
Yeah, no, it's really iconic now. Like, I mean, I think it's the laugh. I think it's the fact that he gave every single laugh the Joker has its own. It's related to the moment. He has like a sad laugh and a happy laugh and an irritated laugh. Like,
and you can tell when he's
real variety.
He's fading the sadness. He's like, Oh, what a shame, Batman.
Well, there's that wonderful episode where some poor schlub, they think he accidentally killed Batman, and the Joker kidnaps this guy, and they hold a funeral for Batman, and he's like, without Batman, crime has no punchline. And it's this really sad, sorrowful little funeral for Batman, and then he just ends it with "What's up for Chinese?" He just goes off.
Brilliant Joker episode where I think some guy accidentally badmouths the Joker while he's driving in traffic, and then the Joker kind of just follows him home and owes
brilliant.
him
Joker's
is
again,
the first appearance of Harley Quinn.
Yes, it was the first episode. Yeah. No, that's a great one where it's just this schlub just flips off the Joker, not realizing it's the Joker, and then the Joker runs him off the road and says you see, I'll let you live for now, but you've got to do a favor for me in X amount of years, and it's wonderful. He turns up 5 years later or something. The guy is in witness protection, and he's still managed to track him down. He's like, I need you to do this thing for me. Oh,
and you can tell that the Joker is loving every moment that he's tormenting this poor guy who's just driving the same road as the Joker.
Oh, you've been my pet project for these last few years. Yeah.
Oh God.
Well, yeah. The killing joke was kind of the thing that changed the Joker in the popular perspective, or the Jack Nicholson Joker in the Batman movie. But most people's perception of the Joker was still the old cartoon and 60s TV show. So it's it's crazy how Mark Hamill's performance has just completely shifted the way most people see the Joker now, where he's one side, he is funny and clownish, but there are moments where the mask slips. You really just see the kind of angry, the angry, nasty piece of work that he really is.
In Mad Love, we see him abusing Harley, and it's it's really, and it's you see how broken Harley is, but she can't help but go back to him all the time.
Yeah, no, exactly. She's obsessed with him. She's at first she's almost a fangirl, really at first.
And it's really tragic because she started out as his kind of psychiatrist in Arkham, and then as she continued talking to him, she slowly began falling in love with him, and it kind of just drove her insane.
Yeah, well, it's all deliberate manipulation by the Joker. He leaves her a flower, and then at the end of Mad Love, after he pushes her out of a window, and she's thinking to herself, oh, I'm not going to deal with the Joker ever again. He's such a manipulative, nasty piece of work. And then, she just turns around and she sees a little flower with a note saying, "Get well soon, Jay." And she's like, oh, he's such an angel. He knows how to twist her in the perfect way.
Which is why it's so stupid when we see all the people. I think it's around the time Suicide Squad came out. All these people proposing stuff
hashtag couple goals.
Yeah, I want a relationship like Joker and Harley Quinn. It's no, you do not want that.
No.
You have a poor understanding of these characters if you want that relationship.
I want a relationship. I want to be the Talia to Batman. that's my relationship couples goals.
Was that Talia? Did you say?
Talia al Ghul and Batman. They have a bit of a fling.
Well, in truth, can I just say Harley Quinn, Poison Ivy, they have a good thing going on, and I think they should keep it up.
There's an episode they kind of just go rogue. They're just kind of Harley's just the Joker and just goes off with Ivy for an episode.
That episode is responsible for basically so much Ivy and Harley team ups. The Harley Quinn show is basically the Ivy and Harley show. It's just a big continuation of that one episode from the animated show, which is amazing.
I think one moment in that episode that stands, I think, so iconic. I think most people know this moment. This car that's full of guys, and they're catcalling Joker and Harley, and Harley just pulls out a bazooka.
Yeah, they're catcalling, and she just pulls it out and blows up the car. It's great. Yeah, but that's another brilliant thing, is that dynamic where like Harley is obviously manipulated, and she's got this kind of girlfriend in Ivy who keeps telling her like, oh my god, because Ivy's always been the kind of like independent, like feminist girl, you know, like who's always told men to go themselves, I guess, whenever they try to pull any shit with her. And that's why her relationship with Harley is so much fun, because she's like trying desperately to instill some independence in Harley, and Harley's just like, oh, Mr. J, you know, she can never get it out of her head. And it's like, oh my, it's just Ivy's just driven nuts by her. It's great.
Like even in the Arkham games, like the Joker at one point, I think Harley messes up, and then Joker just leaves her.
Oh yeah,
and then
she does that all the time.
And she's so hurt that like she actually tells Batman what he needs to know to and how to find Joker.
She does that in the episode Harley Quinn. That's a brilliant one where they enlist the help of Harley to try and find the Joker, because the Joker's stolen an atomic bomb. So they need her help to find him, and that was another great episode where we kind of got more of a fleshed out look at what Harley's like on her own, like away from the Joker. Where she's and like the thing is, she can hold her own. She is her own villain. It's just she keeps being pulled back by the Joker, who knows how to pull her strings, I guess. But yeah, so.
Yeah, another favourite episode I want to highlight is one called Almost Gottem. It's basically the whole plot of the episode is all these iconic villains that you've seen throughout the show sitting around the table talking about the time they almost got Batman. It's so fun seeing all these different villains interacting with each other.
Yeah.
And even there's a bit part with, what's his name? Killer Croc. The story, and he's just like... I threw a rock at him, and then all the villains are looking like him, like, really? And he's like, it was a big rock.
It's the fact that they don't even respond. They literally just change the conversation.
But then at the end, you find out. Then at the very end, you find out it wasn't Killer Croc after all. It was just Batman dressed up as Killer Croc to infiltrate.
In disguise, yeah. No, I love that moment, and I love Two-Face like tried to steal like a giant coin from the bank, and Poison Ivy's like, so what happened to that coin? And they're like, and Two-Face is like, they let Batman keep it. He's just so.
I just looking for a like little telescope or whatever, or like a forensic scope rather, and he's just like there's a little coin behind it that Alfred's just polishing, just like they let him keep it.
It was a giant coin. It was a giant coin.
Yeah, it was a giant coin, yeah.
See, I think in Two-Face's segment, he ties Batman to the coin.
Yes, he does, yeah. And he like flips it on a catapult. That's great. That was like his almost got him moment. I really love Mad Hatter. I want to like...
Oh, yeah.
He's fun.
He's got a fun... And he's kind of tragic. He's like... although he's very
creepy.
He's very creepy.
Yeah.
He's your typical Reddit incel as well. Like he's kind of like
completely.
He's obsessed with like a co-worker.
Yeah,
just because he's obsessed with Alice in Wonderland, there's this girl called Alice with blonde hair, and he's like, oh, she's like Alice from Alice in Wonderland. And then it's like
voiced by Lucy from Twin Peaks, which is cool.
The Mad Hatter himself is Roddy McDowall, who was in Planet of the Apes, and he was in A Bug's Life.
Yes, he was.
As well as other things.
He was in Fright Night, I think. Yeah. But yeah, no, Mad Hatter, I just think I love the fact that like there's even one episode. So his whole thing is mind control. And there's one episode where...
I know the one you're talking about. Is it Perchance a Dream?
That's amazing. I wasn't thinking of that one, but yeah, that's great.
That's another favourite one. So what happens is basically Batman. So Bruce Wayne, he wakes up in this world where he was never Batman. Some other guy is Batman, and like he's got like the perfect life. His parents are still alive, and and he's married. He's engaged to Selena Kyle, aka Catwoman. Although I'm not sure she's Catwoman in this universe, and he's like trying to find like all these holes. Like he's kind of like the tragic thing is like his life's perfect, but he's kind of bored. He's kind of looking for like the Bat Cave and stuff, and then. It's funny because like he works out he's dreaming because he reads like a newspaper and like all the letters are all jumbled up.
Yeah, well, he realizes that reading and writing is on one side of the brain, but dreaming is on the other side.
Yeah,
and he realizes that that's the hiccup in this false reality that's been created, is that writing doesn't exist.
And it turns out it was a Mad Hatter behind it all.
Yeah, right. Well, I really love the look of that episode because they make the dream world looks like sorry, this is me being a film geek, but it's very referencing. It references the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, which is an old 1920s horror film, like an old silent film, where like the sets. We'll get a picture of it. The sets and look of everything the idea was that it was like kind of like a damaged psyche, like a mind that is kind of all messed up. And it was just really cool watching that episode and going, oh my God, they're referencing Caligari, like this old 20s film.
But yeah, what was the Mad Hatter episode you were thinking of?
Oh, yeah, the other one I was thinking of was, well, like I said, it was his whole thing is mind control. I was thinking of, there was an episode where the Joker stole the Mad Hatter's mind control stuff to make people think that it was the Mad Hatter, but it was actually Joker. And I just like the fact that sometimes the villains use each other in that way, where they'll leave false clues for their enemies. So I really like that.
Oh,
it's cool.
Okay, we've not spoken about Scarecrow yet, have we?
No.
He's in the show. I think in the first episode he's he's got this really lame design. He's just got a bag on his head.
I like that design.
I like Scarecrow when he's kind of looks a bit more intimidating. And while some of the redesigns in the new Batman Adventures are a bit hit and miss, but Scarecrow's design looks terrifying in the.
Well, the trouble is, for me, I don't know, maybe it's just because I watched Nightmare Before Christmas quite recently, but, like, he looks just like a character out of Halloween Town. He looks like
It does, yeah.
It looks like he's going to pull, like a pumpkin hat or something like that and sing a song or something. It's brilliant. I like his design there.
Scarecrow, in the new Batman series, he results in another really great alternate reality one with Batgirl dreaming like her worst nightmare, which is really cool. Where Commissioner Gordon turns against Batman and there's like a big manhunt for they immediately find out Bruce Wayne's identity. I know the one you mean.
It's because was it Batgirl dies at the very start and you're like whole episode you're like what's going on? What's going on? It's really tense, and then at the end you find most of the time when it's like it was all a dream, you're just like, what a cop out. But sometimes it was really cool.
It was really cool. I like that.
Put a note in that point, because when we get to reboots, there is a certain episode like that.
With Batman, I don't mind like stuff being it was all a dream, because the whole show is about like the psychological. Like all of the villains go to an insane asylum at the end, Arkham Asylum. It's all to do with disturbed minds and what's going on in your head. And so, like that's having an ending where it's like, oh, it's all a dream. It's fine, because the whole point of the show is everyone's like mental problems, I guess.
Yeah.
And there is even an episode where Batman himself goes to Arkham. He gets locked in a cell.
Yeah, exactly. What was that? What episode was that? That was, who was he fighting in that one?
I think it was the Scarecrow one.
That's
get the name of the episode.
Yeah, he was suffering panic attacks, wasn't he?
Should we also talk about the soundtrack as well while we're at it? Because that's something we haven't really touched upon too much, I don't think. Like, the soundtrack in the original animated series is amazing. Like, the thing is, with Warner Brothers, I think they actually had access to a good sort of sound team or something like a good...
I think it... So it was Shirley Walker who did the music, and she did a fantastic job, even though the theme was like I think an unused Danny Elfman piece from the movie.
Yeah, it was. That was the original theme. But yeah, no, she did the rest of the thing with like sounds like a full orchestra. Like it's like
Well, that's the thing.
I know what you mean.
Superhero cartoons before that didn't really have that. Though it was just normally kind of like da 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 da. You know, it's like kind of something jazzy and a bit more kind of upbeat. Whereas with this, it was a full orchestra. Do you know what I mean? It kind of felt. It felt like from the art style and the orchestra, it wasn't a superhero show they were going for. It was going for something else. It was going for something more gothic, as we've previously discussed. It was like
with Batman Mask of the Phantasm, they shelled out for a choir. So like, you hear the same.
I was literally thinking
but it's like it's amazing.
That's the thing. This movie spawned. This show spawns Batman Mask of the Phantasm, which I think is possibly my favourite comic book superhero movie of all time. We won't discuss it too much here, just because
it'll get its own episode.
It needs its own episode to do it justice. But just like Batman Beyond will get its own episode, Superman will eventually get its own episode, and so will Justice League.
Oh, did we want to talk about favourite episodes then?
For me, I'd say the Two-Face two-parter, which I kind of already elaborated on. I just love how it starts with Two-Face being on top, pretty much on top of the world, and then slowly sliding down until like he's just an irredeemable monster.
I don't know if he's irredeemable.
Some mostly irredeemable.
Oh no, he just needs help is the problem. Like he's
just refusing to get it.
Yeah. Well, he is refusing to get it because half of his personality is refuses, whereas the other half does attempt it occasionally.
There was an episode where he attempts to get treatment, but then the other half just everything up.
Yeah, he kidnaps himself. Which of course he did. I knew that twist was coming. Like they're going, oh my god, who kidnapped Harvey Dent? And of course it was Two-Face who kidnapped Harvey Dent because he didn't want to be Harvey Dent again. No, it's brilliant. Like that dual personality story is wonderful.
What's your favorite?
James.
Oh, I was going to ask you. Yeah. What's your favorite set of episodes? Yeah.
My favorite episode is it's a bit of an oddball one because it doesn't have any of the main villains in it. But my favorite episode is Beware the Grey Ghost, which I wanted to highlight.
Oh yes, I know, that's a great one.
So that starts with Batman. Well, like it's little kid Bruce is watching his favorite TV show, The Grey Ghost, and then years later we cut to a bunch of crimes start happening, and they're all exactly like this one episode from The Grey Ghost,
the Mad Bomber,
Yeah, the Mad Bomber, and you can imagine it's like old 1940s, like will the Grey Ghost find the Mad Bomber before they can finish their nefarious schemes, and so Batman goes because the original copies of the TV show have been long since lost, which was a very normal thing to happen with old film reels. So he has to go find the original actor of the Grey Ghost, who's voiced by Adam West, the original 60s Batman, who's sick of having people come up to him asking him to do Grey Ghost related stuff, which I just thought was a wonderful little nod to Adam West's entire career, probably.
And then I love the bit at the end where he's just embracing it, and he's already been to the Batcave and seen that Batman was inspired by the Grey Ghost.
That's the hilarious moment.
At the very end, Batman, I think Bruce Wayne goes up to get his biggest copy, VHS copy or whatever, of the Grey Ghost signed, and he's like, I used to watch the Grey Ghost with my father. He was my hero, and in a way that's kind of like,
that's his little clue to the Grey Ghost that he's Batman, because he'd said something similar to him earlier. When he said the Grey Ghost was his hero, so it's like a little nod. But no, I really love there's a moment when Batman finally is able to rewatch the episode and he sees the Grey Ghost driving around in a car that looks suspiciously like the Batmobile. And he's just going, oh my God. Like he's internalized all of it.
And it's also he, when he's watching the episode, he kind of like gets out and he's giving like a bucket of popcorn. He's suddenly like he's a kid again.
Oh, it's really cute. And what I loved as well was the Grey Ghost. He seemed to be because I know the Shadow is still an ongoing character, but the Shadow was an old character who inspired Batman back in the 30s. And the Shadow was such a big character in those days. He was actually voiced by Orson Welles on a radio show. But I just really loved the fact that the Grey Ghost looked a lot like the Shadow, because that made sense. Was that the Shadow was kind of the precursor to the Batman comics. So I just wanted to bring that up because I thought there was some really wonderful kind of intertextual levels going on in that episode with Adam West and everyone else. But yeah, so James, what's your favourite episode?
Sorry, I was sipping beer.
Is that staying in?
Wait, sorry, say again? What did you say, Rob?
I was saying, is that staying in?
That's definitely staying. So my favourite episodes are it's a two-part, it's the Clayface episode. So that whole thing is it's like a gothic story. It feels like, I mean, again,
and plus it's got Ron Perlman in.
Yeah, it's got Hellboy in it. That's undeniable. But to be honest, I read Frankenstein earlier this year, and I kind of felt like it almost upped it in terms of its tragic elements, and its fantastical elements. It kind of felt like it's on par with Mary Shelley's writing in a way. That script for that particular episode, and also the music, as we discussed earlier, really made it work. When all the screens were kind of showing up and sort of like showing the character who he was before he became the monster, as he were. I don't know. I actually felt really moved by that episode. So
it's a really sad one. There's a lot of tearjerkers.
Yeah, a lot of these episodes are, even though Batman wins, they are still very tragic and bittersweet.
Yeah,
there's very few the villains that have stuck with us the most, for the most part, are the ones with the tragic backstories. I think, like Mr. Freeze. I've spoken to a lot of people who've people have really related to him a lot, which is interesting. As you said, because Mr. Freeze, when he was first conceived, was just a joke character. So it's kind of incredible how they transform these characters. Again, before we kind of wrap things up, favorite villains on that note, guys.
Two-Face. I don't know what it is about Two-Face. I mean, I would say the Joker, but it's a bit of an obvious answer. But I think Two-Face, just the tragedy of his backstory as well, and I also kind of like his origins as well, and how he's kind of like he was kind of an ally to Batman, who then suddenly just had everything stripped away from him.
Yeah.
It's just so cool.
Yeah, no, it's a great like backstory, especially like I was watching when I watched all of the Batman episodes. I watched them in their original airing order rather than like their production order, which is really cool because you saw they kind of structured it in a way where you really saw Harvey Dent a lot. Like Harvey Dent turns up loads, and then you get to like they kind of built him up. And then of course you have the Two-Face story. So I was really getting it. I was like, oh man, Harvey, this guy's really cool. And then it's like, oh no.
I could be slightly biased because my favourite Batman comic is The Long Halloween, which the lead up, that story builds up to Harvey Dent becoming Two-Face.
Yeah, no, that's a great comic as well, actually.
What's your favourite villain, Ewan?
I'm gonna, after watching all of these episodes recently, I think I've decided my favorite villain, unexpectedly, I think, was I don't know. I actually really like. I'm gonna go with two villains. I don't know if that's cheating.
That's fine.
So it's kind of for similar reasons. First, the more obvious choice is Poison Ivy. I've realized that I don't disagree with anything Poison Ivy does. I think she's completely in the right morally. Like her whole thing is saving plants and saving the environment and using some rather questionable means of doing it. There's an episode where she like kidnaps a bunch of billionaires and turns them into trees. And the whole time I was just thinking, yeah, that's fine. Like, nothing wrong with that.
Is that I think there's another one. I'm not sure if it's the same one or not, but she's building like pod babies or something.
Yes, this is the thing. They get super dark, way more dark with Poison Ivy than with any other character, I think, where she she grows these plant children that then melt like 3 days later. It's horrific. And she's like, my plant babies. And her whole thing is, she's like this, wonderful femme fatale character, like the classic femme fatale, like her and Catwoman, that kind of character. But like, obviously Poison Ivy's more specifically villainous. And because she has like the famous seduction kiss where she kisses someone and that gives her the mind control power over them. So Poison Ivy's great. And there's a later episode as well when she gets a bunch of rich people to marry these spouses who will turn out to be, again, like homegrown plant people that she's created. And her plan was that they would all marry, and then she'd kill off all of the billionaires, and then all of the spouses would inherit their wealth. Poison Ivy's great. My other one, and this is a real oddball one, but it was why I was looking up how to pronounce his name earlier, is Ra's al Ghul. Ra's is really cool, and it is Ra's. I don't care what the cartoon says. It's not Raish. It's Ra's al Ghul, because that means the demon. Because
I used to be into Arrow, and Ra's al Ghul was like one of the main villains in Arrow. I mean,
so they say his name correctly. That's good. Well, no, the problem is that it's an Arabic name, and the pronunciation in Arabic is Ra's al Ghul. It's the demon's head. That's the translation.
It's been years since I watched Batman Begins, but I think that might have been Ra's al Ghul as well.
Yeah, it was Ra's al Ghul in that. I don't know why the cartoon they say Raish, but yeah, there's a moment when Ra's is saying to Batman, they're like driving along. And he's saying, most of the rainforest is being destroyed. Industrialists like you, Bruce Wayne, have a lot to answer for. And I was like, oh my God, Ra's, please continue. Like, they came up with this kind of like nonsense plan for him, which like annoyed me because I was thinking like, yeah, he's like this eco-terrorist. But like, I don't know, the stuff they get him to do ultimately in the cartoon, I was kind of disappointed by. But like, just the concept of this really like ancient character who's been around for years and has been influencing things for centuries, I thought was really cool. And the Lazarus Pit is a cool concept as well. The idea that it like kind of drives you insane every time you use it, but it prolongs your life.
Oh yeah, they use that in Arrow. I mean, I stopped watching those DC shows because they went a bit off the rails for me, but they in the early days, I think they were pretty good.
And James, who's your favorite villain? You can say multiple villains now because I've just said multiple villains, and Rob said multiple villains as well with Two-Face.
I'm just gonna be like a real cliche and just say the Joker.
Yeah, no, that's cool.
Yeah.
Why do you like the Joker, James?
I mean,
we've listed a million, but like. You can list a million more probably.
But I don't know. I mean, Mark Hamill does a fantastic job with the Joker. He is really charming. He's somewhere between sinister and funny. I don't know. Every episode I've watched the Joker in, I haven't not enjoyed. Do you know what I mean? So I think he's a really good villain, and I mean, it's a little bit simple. Sorry, but
No, you're right though. Like the Joker, I think one of the reasons why Mark Hamill's Joker has had the impact he's had is because every episode he had has become a classic.
Yeah.
Like there's no episode, there's no like bad Joker episode. Like they're all great. Like you can sit down and watch all of them.
Him and Kevin Conroy are so great that they brought them back for other things, like most notably the Arkham games, but also the DC animated movies. Like I think the Killing Joke. That is Kevin Conroy and Mark. I think it might have had Mark Hamill.
Yeah,
there's a brilliant moment in a newer Batman cartoon. It's not the same cartoon we're talking about now. It's called what is it called?
Is it Beware the Batman?
No, it's not Beware the Batman. It came before that. It's a bit more silly.
Brave and Bold.
The Brave and Bold Batman, yeah. But basically, Batman. There's actually a serious episode in this rather ridiculous show.
I know the one. I think it's one of the only episodes I've seen. Chill of the Night.
Is it the one where he confronts basically the killer of his parents?
You can confront. Yes, and they've also got. I think they got Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill to voice. Kind of like them.
They're basically
names, but kind of like the spirit of justice, spirit of vengeance.
Yeah, basically the DC deities that like hover up across his shoulders, basically, and they're kind of the angel and devil of his shoulders, basically.
He is beaten. Let your devotion to justice temper your rage.
He took your parents, ruined your life. Fulfill your destiny. Become what you have trained to be, an agent of vengeance. He knows who you are. If this man lives, Batman dies.
Batman may die, but Bruce Wayne... never.
And they're voice acted by Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill, and it's a real homage to the original show, which I thought was really cool. I'm going to edit it in because it's really nice. But I just thought I'd just put that out. But yeah,
that's great.
Yeah.
Oh, I think we've done a good job. Like honestly, there's so much we could talk about, but we should probably wrap things up because it's like. I could keep going. I really want to talk about the Clock King. There's a whole bunch of things I want to talk about.
Yeah, we don't want it to be another like 2 parts that James has to spend ages editing. So on that note,
sorry, Karen.
So on that note, you can follow us on our social media pages. We are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Bloobcast and we also have an email address which is bloobcast@outlook.com. So please. Send us any feedback you have and like any suggestions for any future episodes. Like we have a long list, but there might be things we've not thought of. And we're also on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And please give us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts because it really helps us out.
Yeah, and also subscribe to the YouTube channel.
Listen to us on everything basically. And next time is the X-Men episode, which was going to be this one, which has already been recorded, just needs editing.
Basically I need to crack on. So, yeah, sorry, my fault, my bad.
So we hope you all have a fantastic Halloween, and we will see you next time.
Happy Halloween, everyone.
Oh, hell.